than your currency. Splurging millions, buying houses like Monopoly. Fucking 9 to 5, man, the money is a joke to me. Buying cryptocurrency, my money in the privacy. I make it rain dollars.
Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the No.B.S. Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch, and this is the show unraveling the truth to the facade of the 21st century. We're now exiting the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. Today, guys, everyone on my Facebook Live always says, Birchy, I love when you bring pieces of paper along. I love when you start throwing things and getting excited and swearing and getting, fired up about things. I don't actually get stressed out by it. I actually just have fun by, finding how stupid a lot of the shit in the news is. So I send to Carolyn from my office lots of media articles and say, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about that, and interesting things that I think about. And she's put together today maybe 7 or 8 different articles, and I'm going to run through these articles and give you my thoughts on what they mean and the opportunity and how stupid they may be. I haven't been through them. I would have watched them once when I sent them over to her. So let's get started and let's get in there. This one here is an article from, I think it's drive.com.au. For those of you that are watching it on the video, you can see the article there. It's an article here saying the bank boss tells car buyers not to panic over interest rate rises. The effect of an increasing interest rate should not start to hit car buyers until next year, the chief economist of NAB says. Chief economist of NAB believes that car buyers shouldn't need to worry about the knock-on effects of rising interest rates and house repayments until the early months of next year. Well, let's just think about that, right? If your house has gone up by 2%, your car's gone up by 2%, people are going to start not being able to pay for certain things, and we're going to start seeing a big recession here, right? You're saying you don't have to worry about it. Why? Because it takes 3 months, 6 months for things to be able to get repossessed. The real effects of it are starting to occur as we enter in the months of September, October, November 2022. So that's where the real part of the recession is starting, and I would call it for about October 2022 anyway. But it'll be interesting to see where we're at. But here we are. Many are still on fixed rate housing loans at lower rates, got ahead with their housing repayments through the illness and have a buffer in their budgets. This means that there has been a sign of credit crunch or a drop in demand for car finance, even though the RBA has now raised interest rates in 5 consecutive months to take the official cash rate to 2.35%. We think that will start to have an impact from the end of this year, early in 2023, Mr. Oster told Drive. That's, however, looks a while off, given the lags from rate rises and people paying more on house loans. Well, that's interesting. Who cares? 3 months' time, if you bought a car, it'll probably take you 3 months for it to arrive, or 6 months if you're lucky. So they're saying that we're going to be in a position in the next few months where there's going to be a recession. People can't afford to pay and all that sort of stuff. I found it interesting. I actually bought 2 cars. I bought 2 cars recently. I said I was driving a shitty $500 car, which I was for 9 months. I was waiting for a new car. One car came 6 months late and one car came 6 months early. And I was really surprised because the second car, it was only a little shitty car that I bought. When I bought that car, the guy called me up and he kept saying, it's going to be a long delay. It's going to be this, it's going to be that. But he turned around to me and he called me up and he said, hey, Nathan, great news. Your car has finally arrived. And I was like, finally arrived 2 weeks ago. You told me it was going to be another 3 months. He goes, it's finally arrived. It's here for you. Do you want to come collect it? And as I was thinking about it, I was like, hang on a second. Someone's cancelled their orders. There was an order. It was like, he told me there was like 100 people in front of the line for me. And from seeing car yards, you're starting to see car yards fill up with cars. The car stock sitting there for a bit longer. And car yards, there was no stock, and now it's starting to flow back through. So my thought is are we already starting to see a recession? People cancelling the orders, not proceeding on things because they're expecting, cryptocurrency to go up. They're expecting this to go up. They're expecting that to happen. But now their business is getting tight. They're not getting as much overtime that they thought they would, et cetera, et cetera. It's starting to be an impact into the system. So he said a combination of factors are set to affect car financing in 2023, from the default rate on bank loans to the falling house values allowed following the illness boom in prices in many areas of Australia. So just think about it here, right? If people have, if their house has gone up by 20%, well, then they can go pull equity, go and buy something. If their house is not going up or it's going backwards, it's going to be harder for them to do that. Imagine people start going into default, right? This is a really scary thing that no one has actually seen through any time before now. You are valued based on a credit score, right? If you can't afford to pay your mortgage, you start falling behind, which a lot of people will start to do. your credit score will be heavily impacted. Then you will not be able to get any finance in any type of capacity. You won't be able to get a phone bill. You won't be able to get a credit card. You won't be able to get a car loan. You won't be able to get a rental. Certain things will come in and affect your life. So if we start seeing a series of defaults, which was not around in 2008, 2009, what happened in the GFC, there was no such thing as a credit score. We will start seeing people inability to be able to go and obtain debt because their credit scores are so screwed up. The other thing to bear in mind is that if you couldn't service the asset back, if you're just being able to afford the car beforehand, you've added interest rates from 10 basis points up to 235 basis points. Your servicing, when you enter your details in the bank servicing calculators, will not allow you to be able to service, which will then cause the ability for people not to be able to get the finance, because most cars are not owned by the person, they're owned by a lending institution, and your car is a product of someone else's asset, which is whoever the loan is. So it's not your asset, it's not your item. You've just got use of someone else's asset being the loan. That's my interesting thought on that article. So let's throw it off to the side and let's look at our next article, paper number 2 here. This one here is from Evening Standard, which is a UK outlet. And it says here, this is very interesting because we've just seen the Queen die, right? It's a very touchy subject for a lot of people that are like, oh no, you can't talk about the Queen, and everyone's crying about the Queen. And I'm like, all I could think about is like, she's got a pedo son, right? Maybe Nathan shouldn't say that, but you had to go and pay someone off. So it's the first bad thing. What about the people that have gone missing over the years? What about the bad things that she's done, right? There's bad things that have been swept under the carpet. And it was only this morning that I was reading an article. And the article said in it that that everybody loves the king now, the King Charles, right? Everyone loves the king. And all these people, there were stories of these people saying, oh, watching the king, and how great he was with his speech, he's going to be a terrific king, and all these sorts of things. And I actually sent it to a few of my mates. And I said, this feels like Kim Jong-un, right? At fucking North Korea. And one of my mates wrote back to me, he was very conservative, said, what do you mean it feels like North Korea? And I said, this is bullshit propaganda to push up the super overlording person that's there. And I just, my thought on it is just another gatekeeper. It's just another day. Why would you want to be bowing down to your oppressor, right? You've got this overarching entity, which I still think it's a peasant middle management of the system anyway. Everyone thinks that, oh, wow, let's bow down to the king or the queen or whatever the case may be. And it's probably a topic for a different day. But, a lot of people are upset by that, but I found some interesting things, right? So last week on my Facebook Live, I pulled out a news article, and you might remember that from if you're watching over on the Facebook Live on the B.Invested channel. I talked about an article that came out saying that the Vatican Bank had said that you only had 30 days to remove all of your money and put it in the Vatican Bank because something bad was going to happen, right? Very interesting, right? Why would there be one of the biggest controlling entities out there? It was basically like a bank run saying that there's an alarm going off, that you have 30 days, all the money must be going back to the Vatican Bank. Otherwise, your money's not going to be worth anything. And then I go and read articles like this. So this article here, for those that are watching on YouTube, says, when is the last day to use the old £20 and £50 notes, and how can you exchange them? This article was from the other week before the Queen died, allegedly, right? Whatever, right? And it says here, the paper notes will not be legal tender after the September 30, Bank of England says. So this is well before the Queen died, because allegedly she died. Whether she did die then, whether she didn't die then, whether she is dead, whether she isn't dead, who knows, right? I'm not here to speak aloud or anything like that. She died on, the 9th or 8th or something of September, allegedly. This here came out from the start of September. There was 30 days notice, right? Which adds up to the same thing about the Vatican Bank that said that all the money had to go back. I was going to read, the old paper 20 and £50 notes won't be legal tender for much longer, but in March, the Bank of England said there was $7 billion worth of the £20 and 10.5 of the £50 notes in circulation. So when is the last day to spend your money? So this is from March, right? It's just coincidental that it's when the Queen carked it, allegedly, and now you can't use the money that had a face on it. So when's the last day to spend your money? What happens if you find one after the deadline? The last day to use the old $20 and $50 pound notes is today, September the 30th, 2022. It actually says today, which is not that date when I'm recording this. After September 30th, these paper notes will no longer be legal tender. People will no longer be able to use them in shops. What happens if you still have a $20 note after the deadline? Many banks and some post offices will accept the old £20 as a deposit into a bank account. The Bank of England will always exchange the old paper notes. People who miss the deadline won't be left out of pocket. How can you exchange your old banknotes? The Bank of England warns that people should be aware that banknotes are sent at your own risk and encourages people to take appropriate measures. Where are we here? What are the new 20 and 50 pound notes? The paper notes were replaced with the new polymer notes, the J.M.W. Turner and the Allen Turning. The polymer note came into circulation on February the 20th, 2020. Oh, that's an interesting date then too. Who remember what's happened around the 20th of February 2020? That's when every financial market around the world crashed. That's when we all went into lockdown. That's when, the world got thrown into turmoil. That's another significant date. It's literally, they talk about a great reset that's occurring. It's just interesting the timing of these sort of things, right? The change of the guard, the change of the gatekeeper, the change of certain things that have happened. So that's the second article. That's just my thoughts on it. Moving over to our third article for today. This one here is an article from Daily Mail. There's actually a thing on the internet. It's called the Big Mac Index. It's called the Big Mac Index. And it's an index that tracks the price of Big Macs around the world. So you can see what happens with inflation. So you can research what a Big Mac Index is. But this article here from the Daily Mail says, McDonald's Australia dramatically increases prices without telling anyone. Here's how much your next feed is set to cost you. So we've talked about inflation a lot. I talked about inflation before inflation was a thing. People never knew what inflation was going back 4 or 5 years ago. I remember talking about hyperinflation and people said, get off the drugs, Birchy. You're off your head. Stop talking shit. I'm going to unsubscribe. Stick in your own lane. Deal with property investing. Don't talk about things you don't know about. You're not making sense. Leave it to the professionals like the guys on the TV. And I just kept saying what I said. And it's strangely enough, those guys on TV are still putting out propaganda, still part of that system. And here's Birchy here today telling you, random things before they happen. So this is just very funny, right? Because we've seen here, it says here, inflation has jumped to 6.1% this year, while wages have only grown by 2.6%, right? Let's read the article and let's have a little laugh along the way here. McDonald's Australia dramatically increases. Prices of some McDonald's items have changed huge recently. Menu items are significantly more expensive when purchased on Uber Eats when compared to the prices paid in store. Australians are calling McDonald's out for almost doubling the prices of popular food items as the fast food chain battles with the soaring cost of ingredients as inflation continues to bite. Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought? One Aussie went as far to say that new prices were a joke. In Reddit, there were users that had shared the subtle signs of recession as they had been noticing. In comparison to the price items of 2019 and those of 2022 has revealed even a soft serve now costs fast food lovers more. Customers pay more for the same menu items when ordering via Uber Eats. So let's have a look here. When ordering via Uber Eats, the Big Mac was $5.65 and now it is $7.50, so 32% increase. Quarter pounder burger was $5.65, now $7.60, 34% increase. A McChicken burger was $5.50, now $7.65, 39% increase. Cheeseburger, who would have fucking thought a cheeseburger, right? Was $3.15, now $4.70, a 49% increase, right? So I've got a little hack. When I do go to Macca's, I only get, sometimes it's I feel like, I want to put some microplastics into my body and I want to feed myself full of chemicals. So I'll go to Macca's and I will like the taste, but I only want to eat a very small amount of it. So I get a Happy Meal, right? So you're paying $4.70 for a cheeseburger here. I'll go buy the Happy Meal. They don't even advertise the Happy Meal anymore. It's $5.45. You get a chips, a Coke, and a cheeseburger. So you can spend an extra 30 cents or something, 50 cents, 70 cents and get yourself a chips and drink as well. Anyway, double cheeseburger. I remember buying double cheeseburgers. They were on the $1 menu and the $2 menu back in the day, right? A double cheeseburger was $4.65. Now it's $6.20, which is a 33% increase. I remember buying a Big Mac meal for $4.95 and $5.95 back in the day. Anyway, double quarter pounder was $7.35, now $9.90, 34% increase. A fillet of fish was $5, now $6.75, 35% increase. 6 chicken McNuggets was $7.30, now $7.90. Oh, the nuggets. Oh, who loves those nuggets? I remember having a really disgusting experience with nuggets once, so I don't eat them anymore from there. Disgusting. Anyway, 8% increase. Big Mac medium combo was $9.90. Now it's $12.85. 26% increase. McChicken medium combo, $9.60, $12.50, 30% increase. A cheeseburger Happy Meal was $5.30. Now it's $6.45, a 21% increase. The local couple of Maccas that are in my area, $5.45 still, depending. I don't know, I haven't had one for a while, so probably gone up too. A soft serve cone. Do you remember when you were a kid, they were 30 cents for a soft serve? They were 60 cents. Now they're 80 cents, a 33% increase. Lots of 33s there anyway. Ordering via the restaurant via the My Macca's app. A Big Mac burger was $5.75, now it's $6.90, 20% increase. Quarter pounder burger was $5.65, now $6.95, 23% increase. McChicken burger was $5.65, now $7. You can start seeing the picture here, guys. When we look at these increases, it doesn't matter whether it's Macca's, whether it's the Uber Eats, doesn't matter where it is. Just having a look here. It's a snack wrap. I never got into these things, right? The chicken snack wrap has increased from $2.50 to $4.15. That's nearly 100% price hike there. So when you start looking at these prices, right, everyone's saying, oh, you know, it's because of inflation. It's because of China, it's because of Russia, it's because of Ukraine, it's because of a flood, it's because of no lettuce, it's because of corona, it's because of whatever, right? Reality of it is they say inflation has hit 6% when you've got the shittest food, right? When you think about quality of it, it's not like you're getting a nice big juicy steak. It's not like someone's had to go out this, however they make the food is however they make the food, right? The reality of it is that this stuff's gone up nearly 30%, right? So your most basic staple type of food that you could have has gone up by 30% in the last 2 years. That's a big hit to most households. When you start adding that on top of the extra, and I said this would happen, right? When you start looking and going, well, the petrol's gone up, the delivery's gone up, the cost of grains have gone up, the cost of commodities have gone up, the cost of oil's gone up, the cost of everything to cook the product's gone up, the cost of cooling it, the cost of electricity has all gone up by 20-30%. It's going to be passed on to the end user, right? These things start multiplying, they start compounding on each other. Now the next person is going to say, well, I can't afford to work because I can't afford to eat, so it's no point driving to my office. So now, you know, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. And that's where we start seeing us set ourselves up for the next stage of the system. And we are heading still for a hyperinflation. We'll probably see a deflationary cycle in the middle, but that will only be short-lived. So we've got our fourth article here, which is the European energy crisis here, which goes in to say Europe's worsening energy crisis has left utility companies facing massive margin calls that some estimates put above $1 trillion. Two experts have explained the dilemma to the Insider and shared the government would need to step in and assist. Escalating power prices have sent collateral requirements soaring for energy companies that hedge their sales in future markets. Estimates for those margin calls top $1 trillion, more than what otherwise healthy utilities can afford. It is not the fundamentals of those companies that are flawed. Security General of Power Industry. It is a situation that is rotten, that has been triggered by a targeted attempt to disrupt the market. By contrast, the subprime mortgage crisis nearly 2 decades ago saddled banks with toxic assets. For Lehman Brothers, it triggered a bankruptcy filing after talks to arrange a rescue failed. Today, some European governments are already moving to provide liquidity for the energy sector, and power companies will be able to pay those debts back because they still have millions of paying customers in a recent history making profits. We're not going to see a bubble of fake value explode like Lehman Brothers. We could actually see nasty consequences of healthy companies having to go bankrupt if this isn't handled well. Lehman Brothers analogy is not accurate because the nature of the crisis is different. Ruby added that He acknowledged that the useful way to get lawmakers to take immediate action, companies are faltering due to Putin deliberately reducing supplies. He explained EU governments must extend credit lines to utilities caught in the pinch. No sane company has an insane amount of money for margin calls that can account for Putin manipulating the market. It's very funny, right, reading these articles here. They're saying that Putin is causing the energy crisis, right? It's just that people are not selling. You don't have to go and buy all your electricity and all your commodities from Russia. You can go and buy it from any other country around the world. Why are you tied to that? If he says, I don't want to sell it, why do you have to, have those issues with that? So this is relating back way before any issue occurred in Russia, in Ukraine, or any of those situations, but now they're blaming it on that. And when we look at that and we add up the value of these trillions of dollars worth of debt, these actual electricity companies are going to be going bankrupt shortly. We're already starting to see, blackouts, power outages, saying it's climate created, but it's really just man-made created because they can't afford to put the right commodities into the burner to make the electricity in the power plant works. So interesting. Here we go. Poor old Lizzie the lizard. Future of money, Aussie money revealed after the Queen had died. All right, what's going to happen to our currency? I find it very interesting that we're on the urge of going to a digital currency and all these sorts of things occurring, and we've got now the face of our currency as the face of the New World Order that's being rolled out. So just go and look at a lot of these talks. There's actually a little talk which I might get my editor to throw into this little video. So just check out this video here. When we look at that and we think, okay, who, right? Who is he referring to, right? Why do we need to have a military style campaign around debt and around climate and around the illness, right? It's now being shifted from the illness to climate change. And they're saying we need to have a military style and getting the trillions of dollars worth of debt, which no country, and he refers to someone called he. Who is he, right? And you can see that these are just, conversations that are happening, but when we look into the words, who is his master? Who are the people that are controlling this guy anyway? So we've got the face of the New World Order here. We've got the face of a change of guards. We've got a lot of these things that are sort of aligning at the same sort of time. And we've got here now an article that we'll go and read, which is the future of Aussie money revealed after the Queen Lizzie's death. Lizzie the lizard. King Charles will soon take over from his mother's Aussie on coins, but the Mint has revealed how long before the Queen Elizabeth disappears completely. The Royal Australian Mint has revealed future of Australian coins, which are set to undergo a major revamp. From next year, King Charles III effigy will begin popping up on the back of the newly minted coins. But an interesting change, he will now be facing the left. It is part of tradition that dates back to the reign of King Charles II in the 1600s, in which each new monarch must alternate in the direction they gaze. The Queen has been the only monarch to feature Australia's decimal currency, which was introduced in 1966. More than 15 billion coins have been minted with the Queen's face on it, Assistant Treasury Andrew Lee said. Let's throw that down here. Treasury will be working with the Australian Mint as well as the Perth Mint, make a change in the effigy on Australian coins, which will be supplied by the UK Royal Mint. As a transition may take some time, coins bearing the late Queen's face on it may continue to be released in 2022. We're in a good period of transition, but certainly it's not our intention to issue any circulating coins that are dated 2023 with the current effigy on it. Coins featuring the Queen will remain legal tender, so for some time there will be a mix of both the King and his mother in circulation. It is expected coins with the monarch's effigy will linger for 30 years. Queen Elizabeth has appeared on money more than any other person in history, with her face adorning currency in 35 countries, including UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. In 1952, a competition was launched to design the Queen's effigy for coins and banknotes in the UK and other Commonwealth nations. In the end, the 71-year-old Mark Gillick was chosen for her fresh design of the young monarch. Anyway, we've got a dead Queen. We've got a new world order guy, right? And it scares me, right? It scares me just listening to that little clip that we just had, right? That is everyone should be thinking about it, right? Thinking, okay, now we've got propaganda out saying how great this guy is, what is happening, what's doing this, right? The question I ask is, what did the Queen do, right? And I don't want to go into little conspiracies and offshoots on this, but what happened around all these terrorist attacks? What happened to children in different countries? What happens to those that were displaced? What happened? There's lots of questionable things that were done over the last 70 years of that person in power. We've got a person here that's now going into power, and you can start seeing the writing on the wall already, right? And then you go to news outlets and they're saying, oh, well, this guy's very good. And it sounds like a North Korea style campaign. So just interesting to keep an eye out with lots of weird things happening in the world that we live in. Moving right along to article number 6. So we've got here the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, CBA, NAB and ANZ make huge changes in their interest rates. I think this one's very important because a lot of people are scared today with what is happening out there. With interest rates going up, what's going to happen? They're going to keep going up, etc. 3 of the major banks have made changes to the interest rates after the RBA of Australia has increased their official cash rate by 0.5% to 2.35%. The Commonwealth Bank said it would increase its home variable rates by 0.5% from September 16. Change will apply to all variable products, including all work-in-progress applications. We know that there is a lot of change happening for our new customers right now. Supporting them through this time is a priority for us, Retail Banking Services Group executive said. We have a range of tools and other support measures to help customers managing their loan repayment, including on our new home loan change repayment tool, which helps our customers to synchronise their mortgage repayments from the day that they are paid. CBA will also increase the interest rate across some of the savings products. The GoalSaver will have a bonus interest rate of 0.6. USaver will have a bonus interest rate of 0.6. CBA's 18-month term deposit special offer for 3% will also be extended. Some term deposits interest rates will increase by up to 0.75%. One of the things we are doing to help our customers better manage any pressures of their household budgeted associated with the rising cost of living is lifting the rates across a number of our deposit products. CBA is extending its 4-year fixed rate special for 4.99% for owner-occupiers paying principal and interest with a home loan package. The 3-year interest-only investment loan fixed rate package of 5.49 is also being extended. Let's have a read at this. ANZ says it will increase its variable interest rate by 0.5 in September. We understand the cost of living and changing rate environment is impacting customers in different ways, and our experienced teams are here to help customers understand what these changes mean for them. We have a number of tools supported, blah, blah, blah. So what is very important is that you need to look at how long the fixed rates are being fixed for and what sort of promotions that are going around them, because you start to see, before the central banks start making movements, you start seeing the central banks planning and forecasting for that. Because if, let's say, interest rates go up, and I don't know what's going to happen with interest rates, only the central bank that's changing these rates by the week is the one that's going to be able to do that. But when we start seeing the central banks projections, the bank has a lot of data that's surrounding that. So they can prognosticate 6 months, 12 months, 24 months before changes in monetary policy occur. They can start planning for that. So if they go, okay, cool, well, we know that in 2 years' time, interest rates are going to be dropping. Well, then they're offering a bit of a cheaper and a discounted rate for a longer period of time. It's because you're taking a bet up against the bank. So just be mindful that when you're fixing the interest rates, that is a bet against the bank. So the bank has a lot more resources, a lot more money. They're the most powerful, richest places in the world. Look at the power of these guys and look at the knowledge that they have and start seeing the trends before it happens. So just keep an eye out on that. I think a lot of that stuff in there is just, rubbish when reading it. A lot of stuff in the media is just fluff. There was absolutely nothing in that article that I thought was of, exciting, because we know that they put up interest rates, but that's going to have a flow-on effect. The bank's going to put it up, but how many more rate hikes can they have? We're starting to see now inflation, right? Your Big Mac costs 30% more than what it used to. The car yard is not selling any cars. So we're starting to see impacts of recession, but we're also starting to see impacts of high inflation, right? I wouldn't say hyperinflation at the moment, because hyperinflation means that your Big Mac goes up double this month and it goes double up next month and goes triple the next month. We haven't seen that yet, right? But the writing is on the wall with high levels of inflation at 30% for a Big Mac increase, right? When was the last time you saw that sort of shit occur in your lifetime? It's never really happened beforehand. So we've got a recession occurring. We've got things that are being impacted due to the fact that they're pushing up the rates and manipulating the currency, the monetary supply. How long can it sustain? That's the question you need to be asking yourself. And I'm very excited by the fact that I'm confident on it. that we're going to start seeing a change in monetary policy. It's only been happening for 5 months, 6 months now. We've seen 6 months worth of increases. What about when we start seeing the big impact of the recession that they've created? What are they going to do to monetary policy then? You have to turn back all these policies, and then you have to re-stimulate the economy to make up for lost time. Just like we've seen the articles today of migration, right? We haven't had migration levels that we needed to keep up to support with our tax payments and all those sorts of things. So now we're doubling down on the amount of migrants that bring in the country. What happens when we start doubling down on the stimulus packages that are required? What's going to happen when we start doubling down on all the other sort of social programs that they need to install? That's where the excitement will happen, and that will cause the hyperinflation. I always said the hyperinflation wouldn't occur straight away, and I said in 2020 that you wouldn't find the impact of the hyperinflation probably for 3 years to 7 years later from that. So we're entering into that period where the exciting times happen. Here's my last article for today, and this one here is from news.com. Let's have a look at it here. It is Aussie spending on credit could end up RBA's inflation battle. RBA is banking on interest rate rises to squash inflation, but a worrying Aussie reaction could ruin their entire plan. In years gone by, Australian people had quite a love affair with the credit cards, with purchases made on credit cards equaling a record high of 20% of GDP in 2008. Since then, Australians have slowly moved away from credit cards, reducing their outstanding balances, increasingly taken on advantage of various reward programs rather than leaving the balance accruing interest. The rise of buy now, pay later services have also slammed the outstanding balance of credit cards into reverse in recent years, as Australians increasingly opt to pay for their goods in instalments rather than putting them on the plastic. For example, since January 2019, the outstanding balance of all Australian credit cards accruing interest cost has fallen by 42.7% from $31.7 billion to just $18.2 billion today. But around the world, where the cost of living has been biting hard, households in other nations have turned to credit cards in droves in order to keep up with inflation. So people now, right, if we just take that back 2 steps, right, people around the world where cost of living has been biting hard, households in other nations have turned to the credit cards in droves because they can't keep up with the cost. Their wage isn't growing up quick enough, right? Your wage could have gone up 10% this year, right? But instead of you buying a cheeseburger every day, now you can only buy 80% of a cheeseburger. So you can only afford 5 cheeseburgers a week, not 6 cheeseburgers a week, and you're not getting the food in your belly. And it's not just cheeseburgers, right? I'm just using that because it's a line around the world that we can all relate to. But the cost of living has gone up so great that now people are having to go and get themselves into debt just to keep up with life, right? So the debt bill is growing, and it doesn't matter which way that they're packaging this shit up. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. If they stop creating the debt, then the whole system implodes. Everyone dies, financially dies. It doesn't matter which market it is. It doesn't matter what supply chain it is. Everyone dies. So important to understand that if we have deflation in the system, the whole game's over. So the whole Western world that we know doesn't exist because money is debt. Currency is debt. Our dollars are debt. It was created into existence. Dollars weren't made. They were just created out of thin air, and they are lent into existence. So when you realize that a dollar is a dollar that's been borrowed from the central bank, then the whole paradigm of the money changes. So we are a debt-fueled system, and people are just getting more and more in debt. Everything that's gone up in the last 2 years has all been because of cheap, easy, accessible debt. And that's the issue that we're playing with. The UK and US are leading the way on credit card usage, with US inflation recently hitting 9.1%, its highest level in more than 40 years. Americans are increasing, looking ways to keep up with the rising cost of living. Like Australians, Americans are seeing their inflation-adjusted purchasing power evaporate before their eyes, and many are struggling to make ends meet. According to US data from the US National Energy Assistance Directors Association, well, that's a tongueful, more than 20 million US households, or almost 1 in 6, are behind in their utility bills. So people can't afford the electricity, their water, their cable, their phone line. They can't afford it. As Americans seek help with rising costs, they have increasingly turned to revolving forms of credit, such as credit cards, to remain their standard of living. So you're taking the balance sheet and you take it as an off-balance transaction, not occurring on the day-to-day sort of income that's coming into the household, but you're putting it onto a debt-based balance ledger, which is causing people to be more and more indebted and more enslaved. According to data from the US Federal Reserve, recent months have seen the largest expansions in revolving credit, consumer credit in American history, with Americans adding more than $37 billion to their collective credit card and line of credit balances during March alone. So just think about that, right? Just think about that. The US Federal Reserve in recent months has come out with some of the largest expansions of revolving credit in American history, right? This is just US based. Americans are now adding more than $37 billion, US is $25 billion, to their collective credit card and line of credit balances during March alone. So if that keeps incurring, where are people going to get the money if they can't afford it already and they're putting $37 billion onto their credit card? How are they going to pay it off? They're going to have to get themselves a new credit card to pay out the old credit card, right? And you can start seeing the issues with this debt system, right? The system cannot support all of this debt that's out there. Something has to give. My prediction is that they're going to just drop. They've given away student loan debts in America. They're giving 20 grand off. They're just going, okay, Jubilee. It just goes poof into money heaven. We'll delete that off your file. So when we start seeing stuff like this, right, imagine going back to the 60s, the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, and saying that every month there's $25 or $37 billion worth of credit cards being issued, like just new debt put on the credit cards. Well, if we play that out over 12 months, $37 billion would be about $500 billion worth of credit card debt over a year. $500 billion worth of credit card in a year? Crazy, right? Crazy. Who's going to pay for that? How are you going to pay that off? It's just debt is being created out of nowhere. It never existed beforehand. It's just to try and keep up. That, my friends, is where inflation is at. If they turn the switch off and people can't get access to credit, it's all over. The whole system implodes. They've got to keep this Ponzi scheme alive. So I'm excited. I'm very excited. All of this stuff is on track with my calculations initially of where hyperinflation would go to. We are in a deflationary cycle of that. They're trying to contain inflation, but they can't, right? One wrong moves, everything starts imploding. They're going to have to re-stimulate. When they go to re-stimulate those markers, that's where they're going to have to double, triple it, and it's going to cause runaway inflation. So I'm really excited. Don't be fearful. Take action. Understand how this works. If you need help on trying to understand what's going on in the world, reach out to my team. Call us 1300 367 925. Email us admin@binvested.com.au. Just keep watching, listening to us. Our podcast, No BS with Birchy podcast, every Tuesday on Spotify, Apple Play, Google Play. Watch us on Facebook. Watch us on YouTube. Catch up soon. Have a great day. Keep being awesome. Be careful of what you're listening to in the news, guys. Bye for now.
Like Bilal said, man, we're stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar about to die, soon to be hyperinflated. This my 2 cents, don't care if you save it. Joint be decentralized and you will see you've been lied to the whole time, and it's the irony, cause they do the exact opposite. You become a slave to the system, enough your money, all they do is profit. There's no conspiracy theory, you better hear me. Crypto will set you free before the system does. I don't care if you do or you don't, but what I'm saying is the truth to the reason you choke. I've never been a failure, excuse my behavior. Keep talking, haters doing me a favor. They all telling lies, I know what they been telling you. I'm the opposite, the Donald Trump of Australia. It's amazing, here for the taking. My time is never wasted, just getting wasted. These girls say I'm really breathtaking. I can't help it if I really misbehaving.